thank you guys for joining me once again on a little Interstellar tennis podcast.
The Interstellar Tennis Podcast.
Where I think the new goal for now is, and the goal can change at any point, is to maybe kind of shed some light on the whole music situation, on what we do in the music industry, how it's working for us, and how we're navigating through it. So we're taking a more serious spin on stuff, I think, than just the pure nonsense we used to do. But that can always change. And with me today, I got a long-time friend and kind of more newly found collaborator. Over the past probably 6 or 8 months, we've co-written a bunch of songs together. And a lot of those songs are ending up on the upcoming EP. I think 5 out of 7 of the songs that are going to be on the EP are co-written with Noah. And so, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Noah Tauscher.
Thanks for having me, Carter.
Hell yeah. Real quick, is there a red light on that camera?
A red light. Yeah, it's
okay, it's filming.
filming.
How do you feel about being on the podcast?
I'm excited. I'm a little nervous because it's just you and me. Last time we did it, it was you and me and Andre.
Yeah.
So it was like a lot of energy to bounce off of, and I feel like, I'm excited to do it.
Yeah.
And definitely there's little nerves of being like the focus.
The only person. Yeah. Well, you're not the focus. I'm always the focus of this podcast. I feel like with 3 people, like we recorded a podcast 2 weeks, maybe last week or something. And it was, me, Noah, and Andre. And it was too crazy. I listened back to it and it's like 90% almost unlistenable, which is cool. So I feel like we can probably touch on a couple of the things that we touched on from the last episode, but also like, I do feel like if it's a funny podcast, there's some pressure to like perform on it.
Yeah.
But like this isn't one of those.
Yeah.
You know, like we're not here to be fucking joking around. I think it can just be, a conversation. I have a couple of things that I want to talk to you about specifically. Okay. So it's a very low pressure situation. Hey. But yeah, it's how do you feel about kind of the process we've had so far in writing stuff?
It's been super fun. It's been the first time that I have really been like elbows deep in another person's process.
Really?
Yeah, because I haven't, I've worked on a bunch of music with other people, but I've never like been like, okay, you're making an EP. I'm going to try and get in the ruts with you and just help you express this EP in as you as possible.
Right.
And that's really interesting. Like a lot of the times in my collaborations, like a lot of my collaboration has been for Sync, where like, okay, I'm in the room with another producer and we're making an album for Sync. And in that, it's like, okay, there is a goalpost that we both know where it is and we're both going there. But in this case, I don't really know the goalpost. You have a vague idea of the goalpost.
Very vague.
And I'm just like, I'm kind of like, I'm envisioning us bowling, and I'm trying to be the
rails.
The rails.
I feel like that's a good way to think about it. And a while ago, you were talking about like our lyric writing process, like on how we've been doing it, and how like a lot of the time it seems like explain kind of what you said, because I thought that was such a funny way to think about it.
It's funny because I think with lyrics, the roles are completely switched, where I am just rolling balls down, and you are the goalposts. Yeah. And it might be that the roles are switched for the rest of it too, but I feel like our lyric writing process is that I really have no idea what you're gonna like, and my job is just to come up with a bunch of ideas and just throw paint at your wall and see what sticks for you. And I feel like I'm getting better at it.
Definitely.
But I still have no idea what is going to work and what's not going to work.
You don't know the rubric of like why shit's working, and just like you're getting like you're like triangulating which ones are going to work. But
yeah, but it's still early days on that too.
I think one of my favorite parts, like I feel like some of my lyrics can kind of be like a little funny or goofy in like even the serious music, and recently, like in the stuff that's coming out, the stuff that hasn't come out yet, I feel like a lot of the funny lyrics are you. And I don't know if that's like just you trying to be kind of absurdist and like matching kind of what I like, but it's interesting because it's like you came up like what in Astro Boy, which TBD if that's going to be the final title. You had the line, big, what is it? Big wheels, big teeth. I'm a hot tamale.
Yeah.
And something about that lyric, I was just like, that's the fucking coolest thing I've ever heard. And like, it seems to me like it's oh, that's a very, what I would think of as like, oh, that's a Carter Vale kind of lyric. But recently all those lyrics that have been like, oh yeah, that's like quintessential, like what I want in my music has actually come from you, which is like, I feel like you're like really honing in on what I have been looking for in this music, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. It's great to hear. I feel like saying that it's me, I think, is not the full picture because I'm not committing to any of these ideas, right? I'm just spewing what I think is nonsense and letting
really
you
cool.
and letting you go, oh, that's the one that I want to use. So like saying that it's me, like, I guess I'm coming up with those ideas, but I've also come up with
lots that we have
thousands of little phrases that don't make it in the thing.
Sure.
So it's like,
yeah, I mean,
you are the deciding factor in that.
But I think your batting average has been really good.
Okay,
yeah,
that could be true. That could be true.
But like, and for We Were Kids, like that's a song. The We Were Kids just came out, and it actually just got featured on some playlists, which we're really excited about because this is the first song that we worked on together that has like found a home on some editorial stuff. But that's a song that I think I had started and then came to you, and then we hashed out the whole thing. And like with that one, the whole second half of kind of the mood change in the song, I kind of felt like that was a very Noah Tauscher section of a song. Like that felt more like not Noah Elliott era, but like college era Noah Tauscher to me.
Okay.
In a good way. I mean, it landed in the song, so it was
like
good. Like
the lyric?
So the whole vibe just felt very like, this feels like a Noah Tauscher, 5 More Minutes, red and blue era vibe. You don't get that sense?
No, not really, because to me, like, the second verse is similar arrangement to the first verse.
No, not the second verse. Like at the change.
Oh.
Where it's like, you're driving past my apartment.
Yeah.
Like that felt very...
Okay, got it.
Almost like Lunchbox era.
yeah, I hear that. It's more like, a little more like... It's a little darker. Like a little more like sensitive.
Right.
Than I think a lot of your other music has been.
And
so,
like has the folk kind of thing almost.
Yeah.
Like if it was a different instrumentation, I think it could have been like a folk moment.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm so stoked about that song. I think for me that one rivals Andrew in terms of like meaning something to me for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm stoked.
What does Andrew mean to you? Or is it more just like it means something to me? I don't really know how to express it.
I think that's how it is with like most of the like emotions I feel in my music. It's like I don't think of it in terms of like, oh, this is about that one breakup or that one moment with someone. It's more of just like the kind of general feeling that I get from a song, and I get that with We Were Kids, and I really like that.
Hell yeah. For me, like the emotional thing is really interesting. I feel like when I really like a song, I feel like the song understands a part of me that I like didn't understand before.
Interesting.
And so it like one of my favorite artists
Carter
when
Vale.
I was really developing is my palette is Carter Vale. No, it was Bon Iver, And I remember listening to my first Bon Iver record, Forever Ago, on a bus in Ireland, and it was raining outside, and I had just broken up with something had happened with my high school girlfriend, so I was all emotional. And then Bon Iver came on, and I just started crying, and it really that music understood what I was feeling in a way that I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily it made me feel happy or sad. It's just made me feel seen. So I wonder if that's the same with you, with there's music that you feel just kind of gets you.
Yeah. I love the picture of a 16-year-old Noah Tauscher in Ireland just listening to Bon Iver and it being earth-shattering.
It
would be. I mean,
it really was.
I feel like that's the ultimate. Because I feel like I had that our sophomore year of college when we heard Old Friends by Pine Grove for the first time. I was like, oh my God. And it just rattled me to my core. But I didn't really get into Bon Iver until later. But yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm thinking. It's a song that's not descriptive, but prescriptive almost.
Yeah.
That's probably not the right terminology, but it's encapsulating something deeper than just a single meaning, and that's how I feel about all of my own music.
Let's go.
Let's fucking rock.
No, but I do feel the best music doesn't give you a one-dimensional view. Like a lot of music is emotion, right?
Right.
But I think the best songs give you not sad or happy, but like this mixture of things.
The sad happy.
Yeah.
The like
yeah.
melancholy, but like it's going to be okay.
Lit.
I was talking to Andre about that a little while. Yeah, melancholy, but lit. I was talking to Andre about this in Nashville. Like we had this, we were listening to Atlantic City by the band.
Okay.
You do,
Great
or no,
song.
it's by Dylan, but it's the version by the band.
Yeah.
And the chorus is everything dies, baby, that's a fact.
Uh-huh.
Maybe, the whole
Yeah, and
lyric.
it's so happy.
But like something about like that sentiment of like it's all fucked, but like we're all right is like I think that like hits so hard every time.
100%.
And I love that.
I agree.
Like it's like definitely a sad thing, but not. But like there's still like just a ray of, and we're making it through, baby.
Because that's like a real emotion. Like just sadness. It's really rare. I feel like that you experience just sadness. There's always like some other shit boiled into it, and so it makes sense that we would really be really drawn to like a song that's able to encapsulate like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's really human. It's really authentic.
There's nothing more human, baby.
Hey.
I think that's exactly the aim for a lot of this music, even though I don't think we talked about that for a lot of these songs. Actually, a lot of the songs aren't really like that, but for some of the songs we've worked on together, I feel like that was the unsaid aim, and I think they came out really good, and I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, that's my goal always with making music is just trying to reach that point of like you don't really know where it is, but you're kind of trying to get there, and you're just kind of following like the next steps to try and get something that's really cool, and then maybe a week after you make the song, you go back and listen, and then you can decide whether or not you hit the goal.
Dude, your song from back in the day, 5 More Minutes, I think that was like that was like one of the first songs of like someone I knew that I was like, fuck, I wish I wrote that song. Like that was like one of the first ones that I was like, damn, that's like, that pisses me off. I wish that was mine.
Yeah. That's a good song. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, it's fucking fuck you, dude. I do want to talk about, I have a bunch of notes here, so if I'm looking at my phone, that's what I'm looking at.
House chores.
I'm talking about you really need to clean up your room. So we wrote all these songs, and I do think it's important, or I kind of want to share with the folks who watch this, because I feel like a lot of the people who watch this stuff are probably musicians, and probably are people that are like gonna have similar discussions as to what we had like kind of been talking about for the last month or so regarding like the splits.
Oh yeah.
And like how we like made all this music and then didn't like have anything written down, and then we ended up having to have like a bunch of conversations about all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
because we I mean the typical way it seems like. Well, I mean, I don't even know what the typical way that most of these things work out, and that seems like the big issue with the music industry, or like an issue with the music industry, is a lot of it's not clear what the norm is and like how to, how all the like legal stuff works out. And so, do you want to like kind of, like, obviously we don't need to tell them like exactly what like our deal is, but just kind of what. What your experience has been like, like bringing that up to me, because like you kind of were, you're the one that said it originally.
Yeah. So I guess just to back up for a little bit, just so everyone understands, we're
after
talking
my
about
fucking ramble.
we're talking about the agreement between like a producer and the artist that the producer is working with, and we're trying to figure out like what makes sense as far as ownership of the music goes, what makes sense as far as payment for the music goes, whether it gets paid for before you make the music, or it gets paid for in royalties on the back end. And in my mind, in a perfect world, everything's just split 50-50. And that's awesome to me.
Yeah.
And in actuality, that actually doesn't really work unless you are releasing completely independently.
Yeah.
If you're releasing completely independently, then it does make a lot of sense. My mind around being a producer, I've been thinking about this a lot in our work and with my other work with other artists. I'm really trying to get over the hump of, I'm now trying to think of it as a service. I'm providing a service. My job starts when I enter the studio. My job ends when I leave the studio.
Interesting.
Which is a really interesting, different way to think about it. And I'm not necessarily sure if that's how I want to think about it long term, but it's just like a new way of thinking about it. And that makes the whole, like, I guess in a creative industry, it's all about like the intellectual property. Okay. And so as creatives, we want to make sure we have ownership of that intellectual property so that you have insurance, if it makes money down the road, you get to collect on that money. But a lot of how producers work is they actually aren't really that much involved in the back end. They're more involved in taking a fee up front and maybe taking a little bit of back end, but really the money, unless the song blows the fuck up, comes from the front end. Yeah. So what we did was we had a handshake deal, which is everything's 50-50. Yeah. And I think that's awesome. And I think that like I want to do that as much as I possibly can, because I think it just makes the most sense. I think it makes everyone happy, because as long as like you have a good relationship with the people you're working with, because you're both invested in the music long term. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're just paying a producer a fee, they've already kind of made their money and they just have to get it to a point where you're happy with it. And then you're kind of, okay, whatever. Like I'm not invested in it long term. So we decided to do a 50-50 thing. And then you assigned a deal. And then I cheated you out of a bunch of money. No, that's not how it is. But you're releasing with a record label, and the record label collects 100% of the royalties until the amount of money that they've spent to market the music is paid back. Right. Which means that I don't get to see any money from the work that I've done until all of the expenses that the label paid for the song gets paid back. Yeah, and these are expenses that are like, fucking making a music video and like stuff, like spending money on me essentially. And it's like, you're not getting paid. And I think the weird issue was, and something that I didn't really understand was, we said 50-50, and then like afterwards, like, you'd think that there would only be one thing that 50-50 meant. Yeah. And then like we got down the road and you came to me and you were like, hey, when do I haven't seen any money from this. And I'm like, what is hold on. And then so it's like, okay, is the 50-50 pre the labels portion or post the labels portion? And it just got kind of hairy. Not in terms of like we weren't getting in like shouting matches or anything, but just hairy in terms of like, confusion. I didn't want confusion, and I didn't want to be like taking advantage of like the amount of work that he put into this whole record. And likewise, I don't want to be taking advantage of anything that you've done, right? Because in the scope of things, you have done a lot more work on it than I have. And the other interesting thing is, it's a little frustrating as a producer to be recouping an artist's expenses.
Sure.
But it's not like in the long term I don't benefit from those expenses. Like I benefit from the song having a bunch of marketing money behind it.
Right.
I
know it's just confusing.
It's confusing.
And like, so I think going forward, I think the big like takeaway for me has been, okay, even with like a really close friend, and even if you have like a handshake deal of like, oh yeah, let's just split it down the middle, it's always just like, it seems like it's just so much more worth it just to have something in writing, and not even because like someone's gonna like fuck it up.
Yeah.
Just because like there's probably shit you're not even thinking about. I mean, of course, and this is all like in the hopes that any of these songs make money, which is like always the huge question. But yeah, I mean, the bottom line is like these songs wouldn't have gotten done. So even if I like have put like more hours into these songs, just because like I ended up mixing it, they wouldn't have been finished unless like you had been a part of them, because you know they would have been dramatically.
They would have been different.
So yeah, it's just, I mean, my goal I think with all of this is to take kind of the approach which I've seen a few like more successful bands do, of just like anytime there's someone involved in the process, cut it up evenly, because that just feels like it makes the most sense. But of course, like if a major label got involved, then it gets even more complicated, and who fucking knows.
Right, because 50/50 sounds great, and then a label comes in and says, hey, we want to license 100% of this song.
Right.
Does that mean they license 50% from me and 50% from
I think
you?
So. I think, I have no idea.
Yeah, but it's just weird, because then both of us would have to sign a contract. And like, I was talking to my manager about this the other day. Like, a label is not going to sign a contract with me, like as a non-artist, and then like account out to me separate from your expenses. Like, that's just like, I think just creates a whole like accounting
nightmare
weirdness.
But like that's why they have accounting departments.
Yeah, true,
you know,
true.
But either way, it's just like another step in the middle of an otherwise like super smooth process of us. Like every time we've gotten into the studio, pretty much, we've come away with something really fucking cool.
Yeah.
And that's super exciting. And then we had this whole discussion. It's like, oh Jesus, we should have figured this all out. Or I mean, it's on me to have like, I should have like presented you with some kind of contract or something, but
I don't know. And even, I just want to say, even the one that we thought was a dud, I think every song we've worked on together has been crushing. Yeah. Has been awesome. We've both really liked it. And we worked on this one, we thought it was a dud, and then the label was like, hey, and your managers were like, hey, this is the best song. And we're like, I know. Shit.
I know. And yeah, it's this song, I probably can't say the title yet, but.
It's the song.
Yeah, exactly. And we made the song, we both thought it was pretty cool, and then it was like 4 months of us making a bunch of other stuff that like was way cooler.
We thought.
Yeah, we thought way fucking cooler. And then we listened to it. And I told you, I was like, I just don't think that this is it. And then I know we got in the session one day and we were like, can we work on this song? And we listened down to it and we were both just like, this is not fucking it. And that day we made Astro Boy. Yeah.
I'm glad we did that.
Because we were like, this one's not. No, you know what? It was Welcome. It was the Welcome song, which, by the way, I just finished. Like,
nice.
It's like done.
Heck yeah.
And it's fucking amazing.
Sick.
But like, I guess good thing we thought it was lame, because we wouldn't have made Astro Boy, or we wouldn't have made Welcome, unless we thought it sucked. And then eventually the label came back to me and was like, hey, so what's the deal with that one song? And I was like, I just think it's kind of lame. And my managers were also like, I don't know, like this is kind of the shit. And I was like, but my issue with it was it felt like it was just like too down the middle indie rock. And I told that to the label and they were like, yeah that's it. Like,
you make indie rock.
Yeah, you fucking idiot.
You did the genre that you want to do.
Perfect. Yeah, all the other stuff is like goes too far outside of it. And then we ended up kind of bringing it to a place where I think it's really cool again. But it also is like, I think part of the issue that I've had a lot with recording in general is hearing my voice not doubled, not, with chorus on it, not with a bunch of distortion on it, I'm like, I cringe at it. It's like, oh God.
You've got a little imposter syndrome. I mean, I think you have quite a bit of imposter syndrome, but with vocals...
probably a lot of artists to some degree.
I totally agree, but I think you have some with vocals in particular where you always feel like you need to make your vocal sound like something else.
Yeah.
And this is actually... The other day we were talking about, hey, for this next EP, if you want to offload some of the work past the production onto me, you can. I went up for a run and I was thinking, what could I do? What would Carter feel okay relinquishing control over? And I thought, what about maybe I do the vocal production? Maybe I tune the vocal.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do that. And I think that would be great because I think...
Then I don't have to listen to it a million times.
And I think I will do it differently than you because I'm not you. And I'm sure that you take a lot of imperfections that you hear and fix them.
Right.
And me as an outsider, I might hear those imperfections and think, that's really cool. I'm going to keep that in.
And also, I do love your vocal production. I'm trying to, think about someone else doing that for me, and I feel like it would make me super uncomfortable, but that's probably a reason to do it even more so. But, the stuff that you're doing with, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk.
Yeah,
but,
whatever.
The stuff you're doing with Kat, the vocal production's fucking amazing. And all this, I mean, the stuff that you put out under, Noah Elliott, all of your stuff has been great, and I do feel like I treat my vocals inappropriately. I could definitely benefit from someone else doing that, but man, the idea of relinquishing control is not fun.
Let's just start with tuning.
Yeah. Well, I think we should dive in. I mean, I love that we're talking about doing what the next, we've been talking about what the next project is for us. Which, by the way, I it's so fun to have someone else to be a part of all this stuff, because for so long it was just been me, and of course I have the band, but we never wrote stuff together, and I've written with Reed, but we did that for Parker stuff. But it's so fun to be able to talk about what is the next EP gonna be, and have someone else also have ideas for it. So that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, you have a bunch of ideas. Do you want to explain what the randomizer thing is?
Sure. So I have this idea of an instrument randomizer. A lot of my music making process, or what I try to do in the studio, is try and get us a little outside of our comfort zones, and try and get out of our own way. And because I really think if you want to make unique music, you can't just make unique music. Because I think if you just I'm going to make a unique song today, it's going to be kind of ridiculous. Right. And I think the only thing cool about it is that it will be unique, but it might not be actually good and unique. And so my whole thing is trying to get out of your own way with that. So what I really want to do is an instrument randomizer where we would take 3 or 4 instruments. We would take a list of all the instruments we have in the house.
Yeah.
There's probably 30 different instruments,
right,
including tambourines, shakers, yada yada yada, everything. Pots and pans we could add.
Actually, I have a question for you after.
Okay.
Continue the spiel.
And we take all those instruments and we put it into a randomizer online, and we say, randomize these instruments and send us back 3. And then our challenge for that day is to create a whole song. I guess 3 instruments plus your vocal.
Yeah.
Create a whole song with just those 3 instruments. Not with the goal of this is going to be the single, but with the goal of let's just get out of our heads. Let's get out of our comfort zones a little bit. Let's see what we can do with tools we would never go for.
Right. Banjo, clarinet, and a shaker, and see if we can make something.
Yeah.
And inevitably what we do is going to lead us to a new discovery.
100%. And either you're going to make something that's not that cool, or you're going to make something that's super fucking cool and unique. The goal is to start with pieces that you would never think to do, and to turn those pieces into something you actually like.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting to me.
I think it's really cool. Real quick, is the red light still on that?
Uh-huh.
Fantastic. So if we did that, would the Nord be one instrument?
I feel
piano?
I think we got to do a VST. If we've got the Arturia VSTs,
yeah,
it'd be you have your physical Juno, and then we put in piano, Rhodes, B3. It's I guess we probably have a lot of instruments.
But I we're not going to put. I don't think we should put in glockenspiel, the VS. Oh, we could.
But I think the
then,
point,
the bigger the fucking the list of things, the more likely it's going to be something crazy.
That's the whole thing.
I know,
man.
I know, and I'm glad that you like that kind of stuff, because like that kind of stuff, I'm like, okay. This actually is a point on my list, and it's a really good segue. I am definitely like a creature of habit in creating stuff. Like, you know, I use the same template every time. I produce my vocals really similarly every time, and I like working in my room. You know, like I don't like working with new people. I don't like working in other locations. But I feel like you have been someone that's like really good at breaking up kind of like the normal flow of stuff in your own life, as well as in like what we've done together. And like I have a couple of examples. Like, you've changed DAWs, which is something that I feel like most people really don't do. You do like a lot of production on the go, like when you're like, you've done traveling, and then you'll accept these like sync contracts a day before they're due, and you'll be in Mexico in like a favela or whatever the fuck. Like, that's kind of crazy. That, like, how do you look at creating and like getting outside of that comfort zone for your own stuff?
Yeah, it's a big question. I think, first off, part of my like adaptability, I think, is a little bit of a neurosis, where I just like am constantly trying to optimize what I'm doing. And so minimal fixed in Paris. And so I will like go out of my way to learn a new thing, even if that, because I think, man, maybe that new thing's going to add something
Right.
to my process, even if it ends up that new thing doesn't help. And you've seen me do this before with Notion.
Yeah, dude, that was hilarious.
Where I spent probably 20 hours one night staying up until like 2 a.m. designing my entire life and organizing my entire life on this like very businessy organization note platform. And then I got to the next Monday where it was it came down to brass tacks of me actually using the thing and not just uploading my life to it. And I was like, no way. This is so overwhelming. And so I do have this thing where I go too far and I decide to learn something new, and there's marginal returns. Mm-hmm. Like, I really wanted to learn the OP1 because I thought, oh, that's going to add a bunch to my workflow. And it was just like, no, like, I think I a lot of the times look for outside things to make me better at stuff, whereas really I just need to keep working.
Right, perfecting the tools you already have.
Yeah. But that's a tangent. The question is like adaptability.
Yeah.
And I think I've just kind of had to do that. Like, a lot of it came from this trip to Mexico, where I was in Mexico for 2 months, and as on my way to the airport, I got like the biggest sync brief I've ever gotten, and I was like, well, of course this happens. Like, this is always what happens. Like,
right.
You go somewhere, and that's when like the big opportunity hits. And so I had no choice. Like, I was making very little money. I had no choice but to take that opportunity and figure out how to make it work. Mm-hmm. And I have this kind of belief that, like, if you put yourself in the situation, you're going to figure out how to make it work. Like, sink or swim.
Right.
And I think I feel very, very grateful to say I have like never sunk.
Yeah.
Because I just fucking figure it out. And I think like everyone can figure it out. Like, if you go travel and you need to make a song, you're going to be frustrated at first, but then you're going to make a song, and it's actually going to add a lot to your facility because you're going to have to use different tools.
Right.
I think it's really important to get yourself out of that comfort zone and to find new ways of doing things that still work for you.
Yeah, like pushing the boundaries of, like, inevitably you are more capable of doing stuff than you think. Actually, the fucking perfect example is the marathon we attempted, although we weren't capable. But like, yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like, I have had to make stuff in, like, when I've been back in Connecticut with my family, and yeah, I find it super frustrating at first, and then inevitably what comes out, I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool, and I was able to do this in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like you're uniquely good at accepting those challenges, which is cool. Like, when you switched from Logic to Ableton, like, I have to imagine that was a nightmare process.
It was honestly not that bad.
Really?
The first day or two fucking sucked.
Yeah.
Because I felt like a baby. I felt like a baby in a human body. In an adult body, where I just like, Like
Yeah.
I didn't know I was hitting the wrong
No
buttons all the time.
shortcuts.
Delete. Yeah.
Yeah.
But after that, like, I was good. And granted, I was lucky enough to be able to systematically learn it. I read the handbook and I took notes on the handbook. Like, I think.
Oh, did you really? You actually like read the handbook?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you do that with Logic when you started Logic?
No.
Wow.
No. And I think that's how I got it so fast.
Yeah, I'm sure. No one ever does that.
Part of this, like me, like always trying to learn like these new systems is that I think I have gotten really fucking good at learning things.
Yeah.
Like, I think I know how I learn really well.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a marginal return where I decide to take on this task that really adds nothing to my life, like Notion.
Right. And I want to come back in a second to the like being good at learning stuff, because I mean there's like one example that I know you were talking about potentially writing a guide about that I really want to talk to you about. But the diminishing returns of spending time on something, like I found the same thing with the OP1, but I just feel like my threshold for being willing to spend time learning a new thing is really low. Like with the OP1, it's like I was going through presets and I was like, no. And then immediately it was out. I was just like, I'm not fucking doing this.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you think you have like a really high tolerance for being like, once I get over this hump, it's going to be great.
I think you and I are on opposite sides of the spectrum,
Yeah.
and both aren't amazing.
Yeah,
I think you want to be in the middle where you can identify, okay, this that I'm doing is holding me back, and I'm going to add one thing to my life to learn to relinquish that problem. You're over here where it's like, I'm not learning anything new. I'm doing what I do.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm over here where it's like, oh, I'm having this tiny problem. Why don't I spend a week learning on how to fix it and completely change my work routine to fit that? So I think
20 hours on Notion and then delete the program later.
I am still using Notion, but for way less stuff. But I think a healthier place is in the middle.
Yeah.
And I wish I was there.
I think being in the middle would be great, but I don't think anyone is. Like, I don't think that exists.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I feel like our house, like you, me, and Andre and Sable, although I feel like Sable doesn't like talking about this kind of stuff at all. Like anytime I feel like we're discussing this kind of stuff, she's like, fuck this, I'm out of here. But like you, me, and Andre are on like the like polar opposite corners on a lot of things. And there is like sometimes there's a nice balancing out effect. Sometimes it just isn't that at all. But like, yeah, I think we all fall into pretty different camps with how we work.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to talk to you about today a little bit was like templates.
Yeah.
Like working with templates. I have like this conceptual belief that like while working from a template will speed up the process, in the long term I don't think it's good for you because I think it limits what you do. Not you personally, you as in you.
Yeah, the world.
Yeah. For me, like I feel like if I worked from a template, I feel like I would get bored because I'd just make the same decisions all the time.
Yeah.
But it means I'm slower from the start.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong about that. Like I do feel like when I work from a template, I fall into like my normal habits pretty quickly. Like I start with the drums and then I play some bass and I find the guitar part over it, I double pan it and do a pad under it. I think that stems from like doing the whole Instagram and TikTok thing all the time. I've had to be really fast with like churning stuff out. So I do feel like I've gotten like really good at making things quickly and going to the stuff that I know is going to work every time in terms of production.
Yeah.
But also, for me, a lot of the fun or a lot of like the creativeness of it, I think comes from the like other parts of it. Like thinking about the lyrics. Like I almost want to get past the initial okay, well, I need to figure out what the drums are going to sound like. I need to figure out what the guitars are going to sound like. I want to move past that as quick as possible so I can get to stuff that's like, okay, what is the line that's going to happen here? And like, what's the emotion I'm kind of bringing out here?
Yeah.
And so like that opening moment isn't as creative for me, but I feel like it lets me be more creative and less exhausted when I hit some of the other parts of the process.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think that I'm pretty slow. Like I love
You're a details guy.
I'm a details guy, and I love what I end up with.
Yeah.
But it will sometimes take me a long time to get there, because, like, I'm trying to for a lot of the time. I haven't been producing for that long, and I feel like every song I make, I have to do something completely new every time.
Really?
Yeah. Not that I don't feel like I have to, but I feel like this song needs something that I've never done before.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because
I think it's me. I think it's a me thing.
you think you're just that guy?
Yeah.
But like also I have to imagine that working with like different artists, that like that is a part of it. Like you do need to bring something new to the table all the time, because like you're not going to bring the same kind of production to a session with me as you do with a session with Kat, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, and also like the stuff you do for sync, that has like specific demands for each thing. Whereas like the stuff I'm doing, it's always like, do a Carter Vale song.
Yeah.
Every day it's do a Carter Vale song.
Yeah.
And so like I don't feel the need to be like, okay, this has to be totally different than the last thing. It always is like, let me make something that fits into what I do.
That makes so much sense to me. I think that is like, that answers it. Like the crux of it is that like, I am, my goal as a musician, as a producer, is to be a chameleon.
Right.
Is to be able to make different things. And I don't want to have a style. Like I really don't want someone to hear a song and to say, that's Noah.
Right. The
And
Jack Antonoff effect.
Yeah.
As amazing as he is.
Yeah. But he has a sound.
Yeah.
And so for sync and for artists and for lo-fi, I can't use the same template for those things because the sounds are so entirely different.
Right.
So it makes sense. It makes sense that as an artist, it would make a lot more sense for you to work as a template versus me trying to do many different things, different genres, different industries.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to work as a template unless I had like a
really vague template.
lo-fi or a template for each thing. Like
you
a
don't
lo-fi
even
template.
not even with lo-fi?
I had a template for a while, and I was like,
Fuck this.
even this feels like a jail. Like it feels a little bit like
That's so
it's going to
interesting.
make me do the same thing over and over again. And I think that for me, it takes some of the joy out of it because I'm less open to other options. It's hard for me if I have a template to break free of that template. Like I don't have like the mindfulness to be like the easiest solution to not do the easiest solution, which in a template is set
always,
out for you.
it's always there already.
Yeah.
I also like that kind of, I feel like that's a symptom of kind of a switching of how we look at stuff, I think. Like when we were in college, like we've known each other for a long time. And when we were in college, when you started doing production stuff, I feel like I look at production now way more like you looked at production then. And I feel like you looked at production that now like I did then.
Huh.
Like I used to get really into the weeds on like, what does this plugin do? Like I want to like dial stuff in. And I feel like now I'm so much more like, none of it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
And like Andre and I have like butted heads on this stuff as well. Like, oh,
yeah.
like the speakers matter. And I'm like, the speakers don't fucking matter, dude.
Yeah.
It's just like whatever you have works. And I don't think, this isn't me saying like I'm right about this.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a difference of like, I don't feel like I'm a details guy anymore, like at all. And so, yeah, it doesn't bother me to like be doing the minor technical difficulty. We're back to just one camera for now. And we were in the middle of talking about some details stuff, just about me not being that detail oriented, you being very detail oriented.
I think not being detail oriented is the better one.
You think so?
Maybe not better, I don't know, but I think is the more efficient way to go because
Definitely more efficient. Yeah.
I think it's important to be focused on details later.
Yes.
I think part of why it takes so long is because I'm trying to dial in the reverb before the song is there. And that's just like unimportant because as soon as the other parts are going to get there, I'm not going to hear it anyways. So it's just like, I think and that'll come with time. Like I'm still a fairly new producer. And I think like it's also a conceptual thing, but, and a perfectionism thing for me. But I think like me practicing, not worrying about those details until close to the end of the production would save me a lot of time.
Right, because if you're dialing in a reverb when you only have a couple tracks in, and when you have like the song's not done, that's an exercise in futility for sure.
I'm like, yo, is this like a 15% reverb? Is this like a 10% reverb? And I'm like, well, the lead vocal's not even in yet. So.
Yeah, it's like, who gives a shit right now?
Or even in the end, like,
yeah, how much does it really matter? But like, yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why we've talked about this before, how you really like the last 10%. And like finishing songs for me now is the least fun part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like, oh my God, now I have to just like sit with it and finish it is like, oh God. Like that's the rest of it is so fun for me. And then, the detail stuff is not fun. But it's good that we're like, I feel like like when you start going too hard on the details, like when we switch spots on this and you start really dialing in some stuff, sometimes it leads to really great stuff. And it's like, it'll like be a new thing that we haven't done yet. And then sometimes it's like, this probably isn't necessary right now.
Right.
But it's like good we have both.
One of the... I wanted to put a slap delay on the bass in one of the songs, and I think it ended up in the final.
It did sound amazing.
I couldn't tell you what song. I could probably listen down to the EP, and still, I don't think I could tell you what song that slap delay is on.
I know what song it is, and I was working on it the other day, and it's lit. It works really well.
Okay.
I'll show it to you after the podcast because it's like it actually works really well.
Okay.
But it's like not something that I would ever think about doing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. What I wanted to come back to earlier was how you haven't been producing for that long, but I feel like you really skipped the middle step in production of like making so much stuff that sucks.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you really went from like what is Logic, and then pretty quickly, like kind of within like a year, maybe a little more than that, you were making professional sounding stuff. And like, so how did you bridge that gap so quickly?
Yeah, I just didn't release any of the shit that I was making.
That'll do it.
But seriously, like, I think the reason I don't have a section of my catalog that I can point to as like that's like, pretty... I mean, I do have cringy shit, of course, but like in my production career, there's not really like... It doesn't really feel like there was ever like a place where it was obvious like, oh, he's a beginner producer.
Right.
Because none of that music was out or ever came out because I wasn't, as a really novice producer, producing songs. Like how I learned production was producing snippets of songs I already knew just as an exercise. Like I treated learning production like a course, like a training course where you're not trying to do things for the real world. You're doing things to get better at the skill. Yeah. So a
workbook that's just for you getting better.
Exactly. It wasn't about producing songs. It was about learning production. And that's why that's probably, I think, answers your question.
I mean, it makes sense, but it's also like it seems obvious, but it's something that almost no one does.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Well, I think for the most part, I think learning skills only when you need them is, for the most part, the way to go. Like
kind of crossing the bridge when you come to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, I need to learn how to use a staple gun because I'm doing this project. Like always applying the tools that you're learning. But for this, I think it was really, really helpful to not do that because I was able to condense like, I think multiple years of learning into like a 3 or 6 month period.
Yeah.
Where I just intensively knocked out like assignments that I gave myself, like recreate. I remember I was doing 30 demos in 30 days. And for each section of a song, so I was doing 30 drum loops. And I was just recreating like albums of drum loops, like D'Angelo and like Daniel Caesar. Those were like two of the big ones because I loved R&B. And then I'd like try to recreate the string section, try to recreate the bass line, the guitars, yada yada, until I felt like comfortable with all of those different aspects of it.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild. And you got really fucking good at it. I remember when I first got to LA and kind of was hearing the stuff you were working on. Or no, I wasn't even when I got to LA. You just had sent me some stuff. I was like, oh shit, like when did Noah get good at production? Because like when I had left, like when we had like graduated college, you know, you were like you had been doing it for a year, and it like wasn't. It was like good, but it wasn't like, oh, this is pro.
No,
and now it's like it's fucking great. And now you're like producing a bunch of my stuff, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I think in college I was very much learning the tools for the application, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was only making like folk music, so
Right.
I really only knew how to produce folk music. But doing this kind of like self-training helped me completely expand my vocab, and now I feel like confident, and I feel like I'm still doing that because I'm doing all this stuff for sync. Like my whole game is
Right.
like trying to be able to do things in many different genres and camps, and so I get to just continue applying that, and it's really exciting.
And kind of like what you were talking about earlier, it got you good at knowing that you can learn stuff.
Yeah.
Like now the superpower is being able to say, oh, this is like a new skill that I don't have, but I'm pretty positive that I can do it.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to be that tough.
Right. Like when I was in Mexico, I got another call for a sync brief for a very famous like sports agency, and I had to make like this really anthemic thing with horns and strings and like crazy percussion,
Right.
and I had never done that before in my life. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah,
I can
of
do
course
that.
I can do that.
It's just saying
And
yes and being positive you can.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't positive. I mean, yeah, I guess I was positive I could figure it out.
Right.
But at the time, I had no idea what I was going to do.
I mean, it came out great.
Yeah.
But also, like, that same kind of blind confidence. Like, I feel like I have the same thing, and we'll touch on this really briefly because I just think it's fucking hilarious, and we need to talk about it on the podcast. Noah and I we both share this kind of belief that nothing can be that hard, and so we were talking about doing. On a Tuesday, I said, "Man, I feel like we could probably just do a marathon." And Noah was just like, "Yeah, let's fucking do it." And then we ended up trying to run it on Saturday morning. Without, I'm not much of a runner. Like I hadn't been doing any training. Neither of us had been doing any training for it. And
we didn't do it.
And we didn't do it. Do you
But
want to tell them how it went?
Far.
We got far. You want to tell them kind of like
I'll
how
give
it
you
all...
guys a quick recap of our marathon.
Uh-huh.
Last two Saturdays ago. We got up. Well, Carter got up early. He made breakfast. I got up about 50 minutes before he had planned to leave, and I was like, "Hey, was I supposed to eat breakfast?" And
for 26 miles, was I supposed to eat breakfast?
And we went and we did the run, and we were talking, and we were like, and I think I told Carter like how I think it's going to go out is that one of us is going to get ahead of the other person in the beginning, and then they're going to get fucked afterwards. And we started running, and Carter zoomed off ahead of me, and then we both ran for 18 fucking miles, and it was grueling. After mile 7 or 8, it was just hard.
Yeah.
For the next 10 miles. The next 10 miles were atrocious. And at around mile 17, my legs started to be really, really painful. And I was like, okay, I think I might need to call this soon. And I tried to call Carter. He wasn't answering. And like I called him like 3 or 4 times, and he answered, but then there was no sound, and I was really confused. And then another like a mile or so later, he calls me, and I answer, and you want to tell them the state that you were in?
I first off, disclaimer, I was in ketosis. I had only eaten, like literally only eaten meat and animal products for 3 weeks before that. But I called Noah, and I was leaning up against his car because we were doing this in a lap. We were just going around the reservoir. I was leaned up against his car, trying with all of my being to not vomit, and like truly delirious. And I would get these calls from him, and I would pick him up trying to tell him like I'm fucking dying. And I couldn't figure it out, but I guess my like headphones were still attached, but I was so like delirious from being about to fucking vomit that I couldn't disconnect my phone from the Bluetooth. I couldn't figure it out. And eventually I did. And then you came around the bend of this track, and you were with like Ben Hahn and Kat. And as soon as they came and said, "Hey, Carter," the like change in scenery of like having someone say my name, like the emotional change, caused me to projectile vomit. I swear to God, for the next 4 hours, it was horrendous.
It was rough, and so we ended up calling the run there. We actually, to both of our credit, Carter rallied and we went a little bit further, and I was jogging and he was walking, and my legs hurt so bad that I was like, you know what, fuck this, we're turning around. And I turned around and Carter was like, yeah, like we're done, roll. Let's call it quits at 18 miles, which is an amazing feat. And that's how the marathon went.
It was terrible, dude. And then like literally I was sick till probably 4 p.m. and we finished running around 1.
Like, yeah,
we finished running.
I feel like you were
around
sick
1.
later. I think you were sick later than 4 p.m.
Yeah, I was sick a lot, and it was just my fucking body was rejecting everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. No, man, it was fun. I'm glad we tried it, and I'm glad we got schooled. I feel like that was kind of just as you were saying, it's just as valuable that we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
We learned something new about ourselves. We found a limit.
Yeah. And I want to just quick introduce the next challenge we're going to do.
Yeah.
We're going to hike Mount Whitney, which is the tallest mountain in the United States other than Alaska.
Yeah, the continental U.S.
In the continental U.S. We're going to give that a shot. I think it's
Yeah.
26 miles. I think it's like 17,000 feet of elevation or something like that.
Okay. And I'm hope I'm not gonna fucking eat my hat.
You're gonna say it's easy?
That sounds really easy. That sounds not that hard. It just sounds like so doable.
We'll see,
and we're gonna find out.
Yeah, we'll
and
see.
I'm ready. I'm prepared. Actually, if we fail this one, it's much more dangerous. I kind of feel like, but I'm not worried.
Well, we
can't fail.
What do you mean? Yeah, I guess the failure would be
dying on the
not
mountain.
summiting.
Yeah,
but we're gonna summit.
We're gonna summit.
We're gonna summit.
If it's the last thing we do, we're summiting.
I'll die up there.
Noah, we didn't hit all the things I wanted to ask you about, but that I kind of feel like is the sign of a really good interview. We've done this. It's about an hour in now, and we have to kind of get ready for going to this festival. But do you have anything to plug? Anything you want to let the people know about? Anything you want to tell them?
I think just keep listening to the music that we're making. I'm super proud of it, and super honored to be working with you. And I just hope that people like it as well.
I think we're doing the Lord's work. I think we're doing the freaking Lord's work, man.
Thanks, Jesus.
This has been another episode of the Interstellar Tennis Championship. Follow Noah Tauscher at Noah Tauscher _. And he has a bunch of really great music out under Noah Elliott. So if you want to hear some fucking primo pop music, listen to Noah Elliott. And yeah, keep on listening to the stuff we're making, because all this Interstellar Tennis Championship, 5 out of the 7 songs are with Noah. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
The Interstellar Tennis Podcast.
Nice work, dude.
Crushed it.
That was a lot of fun.
That was super fun.